All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and start. Assume everyone's here. Thank you all for coming out to this press conference. Very short notice. Just something I want to make sure we had a chance to at least echo into the community other than just a press release. I think most of you at this point understand why we are here, and I'm just going to update the community in a general scheme of over the last 5 years, I've continued to echo this message across this entire county that this office will be transparent and we're going to be accountable. Meaning, when we know, this community is going to know. And the repercussions behind us knowing is someone is going to be held accountable to the degree as to whether they're disciplined from a suspension all the way up through termination. Just a few weeks ago, I was standing amongst you all talking about an internal investigation that we launched related to this PPP scandal. Standing here with the U.S. Attorney General, 17 members were indicted. We put the handcuffs on them and turned them over to our federal partners. And once again, we're in a position where we had to arrest one of our own. Not something that we're proud of, but most certainly something that I'm satisfied in the sense that our Public Corruptions Unit, our Office of Inspector General, and in this particular case, our Internet Crimes Against Children are doing precisely what we need them to do in terms of holding criminals accountable. Let's skip past the fact that we're talking about a deputy. A criminal is a criminal. I don't care if you're wearing a star on your chest or if you're a civilian. We're going to treat you all the same, which means we're going to hold you accountable to the laws of this state. Unfortunately, earlier today, we had to arrest one of our deputies who's been here, employed for about 6 years now, 35-year-old Deputy Thomas. He was involved in an incident where he was responding to a domestic violence call, and ideally, an officer goes out to a site location with the intent to protect and serve the community, or perhaps provide resources and mitigate this particular threat that may be taking place in the household. In this particular case, you got a deputy out here who did nothing more than take advantage of his powers, abuse his authorities, and solicit sexual solicitation of a minor. Now, you all have the arrest warrant, or will have access to it and have a chance to read through it, but what I can surmise from what I've been able to read and talking to our investigators, this here is one of the most grotesque and deliberate attempts to really abuse a minor in our community. Many of you heard me say this before, and I'll continue to echo and say it again. Our most viable asset in this community are our kids. And if we can't protect them, we don't have a future not only in Broward County, but perhaps impact the whole future of this country. And so to read this affidavit, this arrest warrant, and talk to our investigators and see a lot of deliberate efforts to be nothing more than a sexual predator is an insult to this agency, it's an insult to this profession, and it's an insult to everybody who ever served in this capacity. So despite the hardships of having to arrest one of our own, I'm glad that we were able to do it and prevent a child from being abused sexually or victimized in any other form or capacity. Sticking with our standard practices and protocols, because he is a sworn law enforcement officer, afforded certain rights, he will be set aside on suspension, administrative leave without pay, pending the investigation, both internally and the criminal allegations that he's going to have to face. Honestly, I don't know all the ins and outs of what he did over the last 6 years, but I'm going to tell you what I tell every new cadet. You're only as good as the last call you're on. I don't care if he won one of our most prestigious Medal of Honors. It doesn't matter. It's what he did on this particular case that sizes up his entire career and the end of his career. From an investigative standpoint, once we got information and a tip that this deputy was involved in potential soliciting a minor and things of that nature, one of the things we wanted to do was to confirm those allegations and have our own internal investigation that would give us an opportunity to get facts. Facts is the most important part of this thing. In order to do that, our investigators elected to work with our Internet Crimes Against Children because they have an expertise in this arena, providing all type of information to the community, safeguard measures, and we're accustomed through ICAC with dealing with sexual predators. This is what they do, this is their expertise. Our Public Corruption Unit are the experts in terms of internal examination, investigations, but why not tap into the best resource we have, which is our own? And so our ICAC group were part of the investigation, and in this case, pretending to be a minor and having these communications back and forth. So that's their involvement with the same minor. So we'll backtrack. We go out to a domestic violence call. Deputy arrives there back in September, have communications with the young girl there, 17 years of age. At some point, exchange phone numbers, have their text messages going back and forth. And throughout that texting and communicating, there had been strategic efforts to plan and meet with the minor, sexual communications, pictures being sent while on duty, exposing his penis and things of that nature. And so that really was part of ICAC's involvement, to be able to have that expertise, allow this dialogue to continue so we can have legitimate criminal charges that go beyond just administrative concerns. I'm gonna go back to what I said. It's not just about administrative compliance here. We're talking about criminal behavior of the worst kind. As a law enforcement officer, there's two things I can't stand the most. One, anyone who's willing to run inside of a church, a school, and conduct a mass shooting and kill innocent, unarmed people. It's the most cowardice behavior I can imagine. The second, sexual predators. Those going out there trying to victimize our kids, because they're capitalizing on the immaturity, the lack of understanding. And if you're going to do that to a child, what else did we miss, or what else are you willing to do? And so when we got this thing going in terms of internal affairs, we went all in. It's a combination of it. I think one of the things we've seen, and very good job from our public corruptions unit in ICAC, was at some point we wanted to make sure that we took the minor out of this and not expose them unnecessarily to potentially getting hurt, harmed, or injured, or any other psychological damages that may come with that type of communication when you're a minor. So it's better suited to have our investigators take the lead, handle the communications, et cetera, just like you would see To Catch a Predator on other different shows. Very similar background in terms of they maintain the communication, they collected the evidence, and then they submitted that in one packet with our public corruptions unit. We haven't seen any indicators that there may have been other kids involved, but I can tell you this will be his last time. There's no coming back from this. One thing I'm getting very annoyed with is this notion that we have to keep playing this game of due process. Those things will take place. But if you read this arrest affidavit and you look at the evidence that I looked at, there's only one outcome that's going to happen here when this case is closed.
By a deputy and then victimized herself.
Yeah, I mean, that's in a nutshell. When you're arriving to a domestic violence call, whether it be a minor or an adult, that's not the time to engage in trying to date someone or solicit a contact number or to maintain communications that are inappropriate. In this case, where you're sending nude photos while you're on duty, a multitude of different text messages of plotting and planning to meet in a hotel, all type of vulgar commentary about the type of sex components you want to supply or impose, in my opinion, upon this young lady. It's just inexcusable. Your frustration is precisely why this one here is really bothersome for me, because we're sending you out into the field after you've taken an oath to protect and serve. People call 911 when they're at their worst. They don't call us when they're at their best. And they're hoping that when we respond, when we get on scene, that the person's gonna be qualified, competent, and morally sound to do the job, and they damn sure better be on time. They're not expecting to be victimized a second time by an officer's act in a sense of engaging with their daughter behind their back, texting, formulating a plan to have sex with them, and all these other variables that took place in this case. So yes, it's very egregious, and it's going to be dealt with swiftly into the severe letters that we have in this administration, and I'm going to encourage the prosecutor to make sure he pursues this aggressively. Unfortunately, it's an isolated event, right? There's almost 6,000 people here, and on an annual basis, collectively in this county, we're answering almost 2 million calls for services, right? We're not seeing this happen frequently and all the time. But all it takes is this time, and we need to hold that person accountable, because there is a ripple effect of messaging. When I'm talking to this community and updating you on affairs that are taking place in this agency, that's part of my responsibility as a constitutional officer, to educate the community. But there's a secondary impact of deterrence internally, that officers that are working here are seeing zero tolerance when it comes to any form of misconduct. If you think you're going to violate the law and manipulate documents and files and take money from the federal government, you're going to be gone. If you think it's appropriate to manipulate a young 17-year-old kid into sex, you're going to be gone. If you think that you're going to go ahead and violate, 65 times in 5 years I've had to stand here and terminate someone. 17 just a week ago. And here's another one. I will keep standing here as many times as it takes until every damn body in this agency gets the message. Period.